Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I want to welcome all of you all and give you a heartfelt, warm Eid al-Ghadir Mubarak to all of you all. So, any questions from the last time we had our session? Anybody? So we talked about the anthropic arguments. All right. We talked about the fine-tuning theory. Any questions about that? Okay. Now, as I had mentioned before, this argument, okay, by observing the universe and extrapolating from the universe the existence of God is something that is recommended in the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran talks about, the people who think, the people who have knowledge, the people who have intellect, how they look at creation and they reflect upon it. Okay, so this is a kind of a standard way, a natural way by which people approach God. Okay, they look at the universe, they look at their world around them, they look at themselves, they look at it deeply, and such people come to the conclusion that God exists. Now, I mentioned that this is called by Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi the simple way of knowing God. In the Western experience, it is called the argument for intelligent design. All right? And we call it that as well. But we want to make one major difference that we want to emphasize. This argument, if you Google the argument by intelligent or for intelligent design, meaning, you look at the universe and everything works like a clockwork. Everything is mathematical. Everything has reason and purpose for what they are doing, which is what we call a teleological argument. Looking at the function of something to know what it is. We call this the argument by intelligent design, for intelligent design. But there's one difference that we'd like to make with how it has been popularized and how it's seen, okay? And we want to put a little distance between that. The argument for intelligent design actually is one that is used by the Christians using the same type of technique, but using the Bible as a base, okay? Using the Bible as a base. So it would use the creation story in the Bible as proof of this argument for intelligent design. All right. So for example, let's say argument by intelligent design by a Christian would rule out something like, for example, evolutionary biology. Will rule out something like that. Not because of intellectual arguments, right? But because the Bible talks about God creating creatures in their final and perfect state that we know them to be as human beings experiencing them. So God created the cows and the sheep and the goats and everything all one. They didn't develop from a small cowlet this small and then get bigger and bigger. You know what I mean? It didn't develop like that. They follow the Bible. What we have today is a new set of scientists who also talk about the fact that they argue from intelligent design, but they are not arguing from a biblical point of view. Okay? So they're not arguing about whether God exists or not. What they're arguing about is that the universe is so complex, all right, that the standard argument for the universe self-generating its own phenomena, biological life and so forth and so on, is purely on the basis of chance. And that chance can be measured or be represented in, for example, 1 chance per 10, 1 chance per such, 1 chance per such, okay? And that it means then that if you had long enough time, going into billions or probably even trillions of years, okay? But you can't go into trillions of years, I'll tell you why. If you could go into billions of years, right, the amount of time it will take for that chance to happen means that the chance will come, become apparent. It will manifest. It's like, for example, let's say you have 1 chance in 6 to throw a dice for it to come up with a 6 to the top. 1 chance in 6. That means approximately every 6 throws you have, within a 6 throw parameter, you will get a 6 coming up. Not after every 6 throws per se, right? And that's sort of an average, every time you throw. So for example, the first time I throw, I have a 1 chance in 6 for the dice to come up at 6. The second time I throw is not a second time out of 6. It's a 1 time out of 6. It's always 1 time out of 6 because every throw is like a new throw. Okay. And so when scientists use calculations and so forth about things like the DNA, the DNA helix, and so on, what they have found is that the amount of time it will take for, let's say, a viable protein to be created by a DNA strips, right? Far exceed the age of the universe. Yeah, so check that out. Far exceeds the age of the universe. Huh? And so this is unfeasible. That's the first thing. And the second thing they've come to realize is that, when you look at, for example, things like advances in computer science and so forth, they come to the conclusion that the universe is so rational, is so purposeful, is so designed with purpose that there must be some kind of intelligence that was behind this. Okay, some kind of intelligence. And they don't say what kind of intelligence it is, but there's a sort of a cosmic intelligence behind these things, because this is the only feasible argument or explanation for the existence of these phenomena. So we find that in the literature, things like physics and so on, excuse me, coming off a cold here, things like physics and so forth are starting to come full circle, and actually seriously start considering things like, for example, an intelligent designer, without having to go towards the idea of God existing, which is fine, because when we look at the Quranic injunction to look at the universe, what we're doing is we are trying to know God indirectly, okay, through his creations. All right. And through his creations, we come to the conclusion that a divine being exists. Might call him Allah, might call him anything. We're talking about just using creation, looking at creation directly to get to the idea that a supreme being exists. All right. And this has been an intellectual pursuit by the Muslim theologians, where we use indirect methods to come to the discovery of the existence of God or of a divine being in principle. Okay? And I think it's very important, right? To use these indirect means, not relying upon Quran or the Bible or anything like this, just the intellect, looking at the world, and out of looking at the world, we will come to the conclusion, and we can say Allah exists because we're not coming from a quote unquote religious point of view, even though we are, don't tell anybody, okay? But we will say a divine being or a cosmic intelligence exists. Now I was looking at a YouTube clip once about Salafi converts being criticized for using the argument for contingency as a means for to explain why God exists, and you know, these Salafi sheikhs were criticizing these guys for doing this, you know, and you know, why not just say the Quran says and Allah says and stuff like that. You know, you're talking to people, if you're doing tabligh, you're talking to people who may not believe in God, don't believe in Quran, that's for sure. Not that they hate Quran or they reject it, they don't believe in it because it's not their book, right? So how do you approach a person like that and try to bring them to Islam and try to get them to know about God, that God exists? How do you bring that person? You can't tell them what the Quran says because they don't believe in the Quran. It's not their book. Right? So how do you bring that person? You have to bring that person to God through logical argument, through logical reasoning, you know. But you know, Salafis are pretty short on reasoning, okay? So that's why they probably want to come down hard upon people who want to use the argument by contingency, which is the next type of argument we will be considering today, which is what we'd call sometimes a cosmological argument for the existence of God. All right, the cosmological argument for the existence of God. Now, let me see, I don't know where I put you guys here. Give me a second. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm just trying to see if I could round up, find a way to put up the share screen. Okay, here we go. Where this is, man. In a second. I'm just trying to share the screen off for you guys. Okay, give me a sec. All right. So we're going to look at today the cosmological argument for the existence of God. All right, which is another indirect argument. This was the argument again, or they call it the contingency argument for the existence of God. This is the one that they were giving these Salafis some serious trouble. You know, the rulers or the leaders were giving them some trouble because they didn't like what they were doing. Poor guys. You know, I'm not too familiar with this thing, man, but all right. Okay, so the cosmological argument for the existence of God. The cosmological argument uses a general pattern of argumentation, or logos. Logos Logos means not just argumentation, but logos means a lot of things. Logos means the underlying reason or the underlying wisdom that is in creation. Um, Logos means the word of God, kun, or God's word, God's utterance when God is creating something. This is the logos. The logos in Christianity could mean, for example, the Holy Spirit, okay, which is the one that gives us speech and so on. So anyway, it uses a general pattern of argumentation that makes an inference from particular alleged facts about the universe to the existence of a unique being generally identified with or referred to as God. So what is a cosmological argument? There it is right there. Okay. Certain facts about the cosmos. You look at these certain facts of the cosmos, all right? And from those facts of the cosmos, you come to an inference, or you come to a conclusion that a unique being exists, and generally that being is referred to as God. Okay, so among these initial facts are that particular beings or events in the universe are causally dependent or contingent, that the universe as a totality of contingent beings is contingent. What is the meaning of contingent here? Okay, contingent means relying upon a particular set of facts or particular condition for something to happen. Okay? If those facts or that condition does not exist, that fact cannot become real. Okay, for example, I will leave this house when my wife gets home. We could flip this sentence around, talking about this decision that I've made, and I would say, my leaving the house is contingent upon my wife getting home. Meaning, my leaving the house is dependent upon my wife getting home. When my wife gets home, that triggers me to leave the house. Okay, that is the thing that causes me to leave the house. So contingency means dependent upon something for its existence. All right. My activity as a teacher is contingent upon me being able to speak English. If I can't speak English, I can't teach you guys. Okay, it's dependent upon being able to speak English. Okay, so some of these facts is that the things that we see when we look around, they all are causally dependent. Meaning what? They depend upon a cause. Everything we look at, we see, depends upon causes. I'm sitting right now at on a chair, a wooden chair, in front of a wooden table. Okay, this wooden chair and this wooden table were causally dependent upon a joiner, or a carpenter who was able to make this furniture. Okay, so this is what we mean by causal argument. When we look at things that exist, we see at first look, everything that surrounds us has a cause or causes, right? Everything. You have a cause, I have a cause, one can say my cause is my parents, for example. My parents have causes, their grandparents have causes, their grandparents, and so forth and so on. So a cause of a thing itself could be the effect of a cause before that. Okay, like for example, I'm the cause, my parents are the cause of me coming into this world. my parents were themselves the effect of their parents, who were their causes for them to come into the world, and so forth and so on. All right? So this is the basic approach that Islamic theology uses. And it's an Aristotelian approach, actually. Okay, so at every event or thing, so that means it's not just a thing we'll be talking about. It's not things that's the only thing we are talking about here. We are talking about events as well. Sun shining, rain falling, people walking from here to there, sneezing, coughing, laughing, speaking, events also that take place. The universe is not just full of things, like concrete things like rocks and trees and whatever, and gases and so on. But the universe is also full of events, falling, rising, exploding, being created, going out of creation, things like that. They're all causes, right? Sorry, they're all events. So when we look at the universe, we see that all things and events in the universe are either from causes, have causes, right? Or what we call causally dependent, or they are contingent, meaning dependent again, which is the same meaning. From these facts, philosophers infer to the best explanation that a first or sustaining cause, a necessary being, an unmoved mover, or a personal being or God exists that cause or sustains the universe. All right, so let's break this down a little more. Okay, the cosmological argument is an a posteriori argument. And I have a little discussion of what a posteriori argument means. It means knowledge, justifications, or arguments that depend on experience or empirical evidence. Okay, examples include most aspects of science and personal knowledge. Okay, that's an a posteriori argument. Okay, an argument or a knowledge that is based upon experience or empirical evidence. This is a posteriori. Okay. So why is a cosmological argument an a posteriori argument? Well, we look at creation and we see that creation, or the things around us, have this pattern, okay, have this reality, that they are all effects of causes. Okay, this is an observation. That's why it's an a posteriori one. And that from this, we see that this is true, and somebody should turn their microphone off.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Sorry, my apologies. I wanted to ask you to hit the F5 button on your keyboard. Right. F5.
Yes.
And you can use your cross buttons to go across now.
And do what?
Use your cross buttons to switch through the slides now.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so it's an a posteriori argument, and I'm sure you guys got the picture what an a posteriori argument is, and the argument for why a posteriori for the cosmological argument is because we are looking at a particular pattern in nature. Okay, but a posteriori arguments could be found in commonplace things. All right, for example, I'm talking to X about Brother Jafari. And I say, well, Brother Jafari is such and such and such and such. All right. It's an a posteriori argument because this person knows that I know Brother Jafari, for example. And based upon my knowledge of him, I can say this, I can say that, and so forth. Wow. What's all this marking up and stuff like this thing? I have no idea. Anyway, now, how it goes? A contingent being, a being such that if it exists, it could not have not existed, or could cease to exist. Okay, let me say that again. A contingent being exists. What is a contingent being? A being such that if it exists, it could have not existed or could cease to exist. Okay, look at you and me. I exist, you exist. Could we have not existed? Yes, we could have not existed. All right, all it took was for my mother and my father to belong on two different sides of the planet. That's it. I'm no longer there. You know what I mean? Or for example, when he was to look at my mother with that glint in his eye, he was looking somewhere else. I'm out of the picture. Okay, I could have not existed. Or for example, all these things happened, but I didn't get air to breathe as a child. I died. You know, I could have not existed. Okay, so it's between not existing and also it could cease to exist. I could cease to exist. You can cease to exist. So a contingent being, remember, its existence is contingent upon something else, its cause. If the cause is not there, the thing doesn't exist. All right? If the cause is removed, the thing that might have been existing before, but the cause has been removed, and so then that thing no longer exists. That's why it is contingent. It is dependent upon something to come into existence, okay? And it is dependent upon its being severed from that thing to come out of existence. All right. This contingent being has a cause of or explanation for its existence. That is okay, that's clear. The cause of or explanation for its existence is something other than the contingent being itself, of course. All right, because if it was the contingent being itself, it would not be a contingent being in the sense that it would not be dependent upon something else as its cause. What causes or explains the existence of this contingent being must either be solely other contingent beings or include a non-contingent or necessary being. All right, so the cause of a contingent being could be either one, another contingent being. All right, that other contingent being is my cause, but it itself is the effect of another cause. So my mother, for example, is, let's say, my cause, but she herself is dependent or contingent upon her parents for her to be in existence. All right. Now, I don't want to complicate things. I have made it as simple as possible, just to clarify something. My mother's parents are not her cause. All right. My mother's parents are a certain type of cause, a facilitating cause. The reason why, from a Sadran philosophical point of view, a cause is always associated with its effect. Always. A cause and effect are married together. Wherever you see that cause, you see the effect. And so, for example, our parents are not like this. You know, my mother is in Canada, for example. You know, my mother is not my continuous cause. Okay, maybe she was a facilitating cause by which she brought me into this world, you know, but after that, you know, I'm on my own. Okay, so that means that she's not a full cause. All right, because a full cause is always with the effect, but that's just another story. The cause or an explanation for the existence of a contingent being would either be other contingent beings or include a non-contingent or necessary being. A non-contingent or necessary being is a being itself that does not have a cause. That's what a non-contingent or necessary being is. Okay? Necessary means that it is necessary in itself, for itself. and that also it is necessary for its existence is necessary for other things to exist. Okay, and we could unpack that soon too. Now, the next point: contingent beings alone cannot provide a completely adequate causal account or explanation for the existence of a contingent being. Okay, it cannot provide a completely adequate causal account or explanation for the existence of a contingent being. You know, for example, you know, if I say again, go back to my mother example, my mother caused me. Well, she's a contingent being, right? So the thing that caused my mother is sort of indirectly related to my cause, to the cause of me. So my mother is not an adequate explanation for myself as an effect of her as cause. She's not a proper explanation for that. Now, where this argument, how this argument takes form, it takes form in this particular way. Let's say we have contingent being A, right? Contingent being A, right? A could be anything. It could be an apple, it could be an automobile, it could be anything. A. And it is caused by cause X, right? So X is what causes A. But X is also itself a contingent being. So that means X is caused by something. So let's say it is caused by X1. So X1 is what causes X, and X causes A. But X1 is also a contingent being. So X1 is caused by X2. So X2 causes X1, which causes X, which causes A. Okay? And we could keep going and going and going to X to the millionth, to X to the whatever. All right? Now, could this go on ad infinitum? Could this go on infinitely without end? The answer is no. As a logical conclusion, the answer is no. Because if you have to go back and back infinitely for the causation of A, right? Then if you have to go back infinitely, then A could never come into existence. A could never come into existence if the chain of cause and effect are infinite. And a good example of that, a good experiment for that, is to imagine this particular scenario. You have, like, let's say 4 or 5 people standing at a crossroads about to cross the street. But every single one of those 4 or 5 people say to themselves, I am not going to start crossing the street until somebody else does that first. Everybody is saying this. In other words, everybody is saying that I want to be the effect. My crossing, my action has to be the effect of somebody else's actions, all right, which will cause my action to take place, right? In this case, it is stepping onto the street and crossing. It can only be done if somebody else goes before me and does it. If these 4 or 5 people stand at the crosswalk, just waiting for someone among them to cross before they do, none of them will cross. Now, it might be 4 or 5 people, but this 4 or 5 people are going in a circle. Okay, everyone is depending upon everybody else. And that is very tantamount to an infinite loop. That's tantamount to an infinite loop. Nobody's going to cross. What has to happen is somebody to say, hell with you guys, man. I'm crossing the road. I got no time. I got to get to work. The person crosses and everybody else just crosses. Everybody else crosses. Okay, so this infinite regress, this going back and back and back and back into time ad infinitum without any end, okay, is called an infinite regress. Excuse me. An infinite regress. Or tasalsul in Arabic. And for this reason that we have just explained, it is called tasalsul is mahal, which means tasalsul or infinite regress is impossible, And thus, if it is impossible, then we would say then that continuous regress, going back and back, will have to stop at a cause that is not the effect of any other cause. Just like that guy who says, I'm going to cross the road, he does this on his own. He or she makes this decision on their own and initiates this movement. They are an independent cause. That person would be a necessary cause for the crossing of everybody else on that street. All right, so it must end with a necessary being. All right, therefore, what causes or explains the existence of this contingent being must include a non-contingent or necessary being. Oops. Now, the next point is the universe is contingent. Why? The universe is contingent because it is made up of contingent parts. Okay? Therefore, the necessary being is something other than the universe. So this is where we get the idea of necessary being. Now, the word necessary being, as you notice, many times, for example, we capitalize it. Capital N and capital B and so on. And why we don't say God is because this is purely an intellectual exercise. It's purely an intellectual thing. And we are coming to the existence of the divine being, or a fundamental cause, which can be anything. All right. Again, for that to be clear, what kind of being is a necessary being? Again, is the talk on theology, is the discussion on theology. Okay, so the cosmological argument is part of classical natural theology, whose goal is to provide evidence for the claim that God exists. The earliest formulation of a version of the cosmological argument is found in Plato's Laws, page 893 to 896. A classical argument is firmly rooted in Aristotle's Physics, volume 8, chapters 4 to 6, and Metaphysics, volume 12, from 1 to 6. Islamic philosophy enriches the tradition, developing two types of arguments. And Islamic philosophers such as Ibn Sina developed the argument from contingency, which is taken up by Thomas Aquinas in his Summa Theologica and his Summa Contra Gentiles. So as you see here, in the Christian experience, St. Thomas Aquinas was a person who propounded this idea, which he got from the Muslims. And I mean, to be fair, he got it from it was developed by the Muslims, but it did not originate with them. This argument was influenced by John Philoponus from the 5th century of the Christian era. The Mutakallimun, this is a mistake here, Mutakallimun, oh my God. One sec. Yeah, the Mutakallimun theologian. The Mutakallimin is the Arabic word for the theologians in Islam, right? The word Mutakallimin or the Mutakallimun comes from the word kalam, okay, which means to speak. Mutakallimun are those people who speak with each other, who discuss with each other, these issues, right? That's why we call them, the theologians Mutakallimun. And so these Mutakallimun develop the temporal version of the argument. Temporal version means the version in time. Okay. Oh gosh, this thing's happened. Of the argument from the impossibility of an infinite regress, now referred to as the Kalam argument. Okay, temporal version means occurring in time. right? When I say, for example, my mother is my cause. Okay, let's take it at face value like that. She's my cause in time. She existed in a time before I came into existence. Okay, and because of her actions, I came into existence. So it's a temporal type of a aspect, and I think it's very important to mention that because this temporal aspect that determines causation is only something that is found in this world, in the material world. We have worlds like the angelic world, for example, that are not temporal. They're not in time. They go beyond time. They're not in time at all. And so it's a big, it's a different argument, a different discussion when we are talking about metaphysical realities. So this Kalam argument is something very, very famous among contemporary Western theologians, not Muslim theologians, contemporary Western theologians who use this Islamic argument as one argument for the existence of God, the philosophical argument for the existence of God, and it's quite powerful. For example, Al-Ghazali argued that everything that begins to exist requires a cause of its beginning. The world is composed of temporal phenomena preceded by other temporally ordered phenomena. Since such a series of temporal phenomena cannot continue to infinity, as we have discussed, an infinite regress, because an actual infinite is impossible, the world must have had a beginning and the cause of its existence, namely God. And there are various modalities of the various types of the cosmological argument. And one way of distinguishing between versions of the argument is in terms of the relevance of time to the argument. In Aquinas' version, consideration of the essential ordering of the causes or reasons proceeds independent of temporal concerns. The relationship between cause and effect is treated as real but not temporal, so that the first cause is not a first cause in time, but a sustaining cause. Here I was telling you guys about a cause, right? A cause, a true cause, a first cause in this case for Aquinas is a sustaining cause, is a cause that keeps that phenomenon in existence. And that cause is always with its effect. It does not leave its effect. The moment the cause leaves the effect is finished, it's done, it's dead. Okay? And so therefore, if the cause is always with the effect, there's no temporal issue here. Okay? The cause does not come before the effect. The cause comes with the effect. Yes, there's a before and after. Not a before and after in temporal terms, but a before and after in terms of priority. The cause always comes with the effect. The cause is prior to the effect, but not prior in terms of time, but prior in terms of how can I put it? Existential force. Okay, prior in terms of existential force, existential power and dominance that the effect does not have. In the Kalam version, however, it uses temporal ordering. Okay, why is there something rather than nothing? For example, if God and the universe is logically or absolutely necessary, something would not only exist, but would have to exist even if nothing else existed. At the same time, probably no reason can be given for why logically necessary things exist. Some doubt whether we can ask this question because there being nothing is not an option. What exactly is nothing at all? What would nothing be? This is a very good point. Okay, why is there something rather than nothing? Well, what this is saying is this. Why is there something rather than nothing? Well, what do we mean by nothing? Okay? If we mean truly by nothing, we mean something, nothing, it doesn't exist, non-existence, then non-existence doesn't exist. And if non-existence doesn't exist, there would always be something. As simple as that, you know? So if there's just something, why is there something rather than nothing? You know, in this question, you know, it seems that something is juxtaposed to nothing, and nothing is the opposite of something. Like nothing has an existence. Nothing has no existence. Nothing has no existence. So there must be always something. There can never be nothing. You know, and literally speaking, there can never be nothing because nothing cannot exist. Nothing doesn't exist, has no existence whatsoever. Huh? All right, so let's leave that for now. Sometimes you think of nothing, we think that nothing is the notion of empty space. You know, what's inside there? Nothing. Right? You think there's empty space. And we can only conceptualize nothing in terms of that, right? There's nothing in this cup, you know, because you don't see anything in it, but there is space in it, you know. But if we took everything out of space, what we will still have is the void, okay? And that void is a reality. Now, again, if you go back to science, contemporary relativist theory of relativity and quantum physics and so on, they talk about space as a something, okay? That space is curved and that gravity comes about through things with high mass in space, exerting a force on space and actually curving space to fit these huge objects, okay? So space is actually a something. It has a shape, okay? And that shape could fluctuate, you see? So when we think of nothing as space, we are wrong, because space is a something that can be influenced by things. Nothing cannot be influenced by things because nothing by definition is nothing. So when we look at nothing, you know, we are talking about nothing in a symbolic sense. Huh? When we say nothing, when we talk about nothing, we talk about nothing in a conceptual sense, not in terms of nothing in its reality. Okay, remember that. And we can talk about non-existence in a conceptual sense. You know, when we say non-existence is developed in the minds of scholars, we say is, we give a kind of existence to nothing, you know, but that is refers to nothing as a reference point, you know, if you want to talk about it, you see. So sometimes you get confused when we use nothing in a conceptual aspect, you know, between that and nothing as something that really does not exist at all. All right, so we got about what, 5 minutes. Let's see, you take some questions if you guys would like anything that comes to your mind you guys would like to talk about.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Somewhere in your discourse you mentioned quantum physics.
Yes.
And metaphysics.
Yes.
Could you define it too?
All right. First of all, physics. Physics in philosophy means the physical world. All right, it means philosophy that is derived by observation of the physical world. Okay. So that's what physics in a philosophical sense means. Physics in a scientific sense means the study of things like motion, the interactions between material objects, the forces and rules that govern motion and inertia, and things like that in science. This is physics, right? I'm just giving you some rough ideas. You know, you could go Google it and get an even better definition. All right. So sometimes you talk about physics. When we say physics, we mean it in the philosophical sense. Sometimes we mean it in the scientific sense. When we say quantum physics, what we mean is a certain type of physics, all right? Meaning the study of motion, etc., as I mentioned, a certain type of physics that relies upon the quantum data, okay, or quantum phenomena. Quantum phenomena goes back to Einstein's theory of relativity, and also to observation of subatomic particles and their behavior. So quantum physics really deals with the movement and interaction of subatomic particles in nature. Okay, that's what quantum physics is. When we say metaphysics, now we are going into the concept of physics as something philosophical. Remember, physics in the philosophical sense means philosophy that is dependent upon observation of the natural world in order to arrive at laws and rules for existence. That's what physics means, okay? When we say metaphysics, it means going beyond. You know, meta means beyond, right? Like trans, going beyond the physical world and dealing with the world or dealing with the realities that are not based upon looking at individual things in nature, all right? What it means is when you ask questions about things like being and existence, this is metaphysics, all right? Being and existence. You know, for example, when I say, you know, what's this? This is a bottle, right? This is a bottle, okay? This bottle is on the table, all right? So this is a bottle. All right. This is physics, all right? We're talking about bottle and bottleness and all that kind of stuff. All right. When I ask the question, does a bottle exist or not? And what kind of existence is the bottle? This is metaphysics. All right. You're going beyond the bottle now. You're going into the realm of existence. And this is metaphysics. When we say, for example, you know, everything that exists is either a cause or an effect. Okay, so causation is a metaphysical argument because it's something that goes beyond individual things. Okay, it affects all things. So it's beyond every individual thing and it affects everything. All right, and this is what we mean by metaphysics.
Thank you, Shaykh.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I just wanted to say, at least from my observation, I can probably attest for most of the students here, the class of theology, particularly this class of theology, the fact that we have explored the existence of God and we have not even opened a page of the Holy Quran as yet.
Right.
I think that is something refreshingly new for many students. And I hope that it opens people's eyes to the Islamic way of looking at things, not just from opening Quran, what does the Quran say, but understand that Islam also explores and includes physics, metaphysics, all these things in its studies, inshallah. Yeah.
Inshallah. I think that's a really good point, right? It might be new for you, brothers and sisters, but it's not new from Islamic theology itself, because the cosmological argument is almost like an intellectual linchpin of of theology. Remember, theology includes, the idea of God, the existence of God. And again, we do this by an intellectual way, by using the power of the mind, and reason and so on. And Allah gave us this for this particular purpose. He gave us our reason so that we could be able to look at our world, analyze it, and come to conclusions about what it means to us, inshallah. So any more questions, comments? Yes, go ahead. Walaikum salam.
The cosmological argument you were saying is one of the arguments that you can use to for example, if you're in a conversation with an atheist,
right,
the cosmological argument is one of the arguments that they could use to prove the existence
of God. Yes, to an atheist, because an atheist don't believe in your Quran. He doesn't believe in the Bible, right? An atheist believes, I'm talking about a good atheist now. An atheist believes in reason. Okay, so this is where the cosmological argument comes in.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks,
yeah.
Shaykh. Shukran.
I wanted to ask persons while we are here, Assalamu alaikum, the post-class discussion. I know the last time we had it, I had it once, and there were like 2 people in the class. Do you think that it is something that's beneficial? Do you want to have it? Do you think that we should have it on this day? Or I was thinking maybe if we have it on a Saturday, for example, where we just discuss the classes in one session rather than having it every day after each session. Let me know what you think, because I think it's a crucial part of the learning process, but I want it to be convenient and beneficial for persons, inshallah. So let me know what you think.
You're asking Brother Jafari?
Yeah.
I think it should be, Assalamu alaikum, I think it should be on a Saturday and we'll do everything.
Okay, Shaykh, for just to let you know what you're talking about, it's sort of a mubahatha, but because of the timing of the end of the classes around Maghrib time, and then we go into night time, it's kind of difficult for everybody to participate, I realize.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if we should have it on the Saturday, probably 1 hour on a Saturday or something, and just let people come out and discuss the classes for the week. So we can go to a theology session, or comparative session, or Quran session, or ethics session, or part of the day, So
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And what you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
I would say you could just give us a little bit of time to digest the information, because there's a lot of deep new concepts that we're hearing. So the weekend should be fine. Just give us a little time to digest it and understand it and process it. We could probably watch the video again, because some of it might pass over our heads. I know for myself, a lot of it, I had to watch a lot of the videos over again to grasp what they say, because a lot of deep stuff. So
Yeah, this is why I think questions and answers are very important, right? And you should be thinking about, how we're going to look and stuff like that if you ask a question and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because when I was studying Puma and stuff, I used to make these teachers get frustrated. I will not stop asking a question until I understand exactly and everything what they were saying. And I think this is something I think you guys should do yourselves as well. It is a lot of new stuff, but I think it's extremely important why we bring in things like the anthropic principle and the fine tuning and stuff, because these things are now current, they're happening right now, in the intellectual circles. We have to be very much aware of that. The cosmological argument, for example, is what Muslims gathered from the teachings of Plato and Aristotle and so on, and apply that to Islam. And again, it's the same thing. This is I would call it maybe the current knowledge base that is there in that world at that time, and they utilize that to bring it into their explanation for the existence of God. We're doing the same thing. We're using the cosmological argument, but we are also using things like, for example, intelligent design, and the fine-tuning argument. We could keep the intelligent design aspect of just the physical universe, the sun, the moon, the stars, and stuff like that. But we could also incorporate, for example, subatomic physics, you see? And we could use these things in order for us to come to a deeper understanding and a more relevant understanding about God's existence. Okay, so if there are no more questions, inshallah, I'm going to bid you guys a good evening. And, hopefully I see you again next week Monday. Inshallah.
Inshallah, Eid. Ghadir Mubarak, inshallah.
Eid Mubarak to you all as well.
You should have been down here sharing any Qurbani and stuff.
My God, yeah. Don't start, please, man. Come on, don't start that kind of stuff now, man. Come on, man.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Soon.
Inshallah, soon. I'll talk to you guys later.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Fi aman Allah. Fi aman Allah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.